No, welcome everyone to the final showcase after 2 weeks of the Markerless motion capture campaign of the project EnTimeMent. So my name is Antonio Camurri. I'm the project coordinator. I'll tell you just a few words about what is the place where we are, and then something about the EnTimeMent project. Then we'll have a presentation by Qualis, that is a partner in this European project that kindly supported this 2 weeks campaign in a wonderful way. And then we'll have a presentation of the experiments and the feasibility studies that we did during these 2 weeks. And finally, we'll have a roundtable. So this is the programs. We are in Casa Paganini Infomus, is a research center of the University of Genoa that is aiming at doing research on human-computer interaction, artificial intelligence, and the basic characteristic of this research group is that the research is deeply inspired by the arts and the culture. So you will see a few examples of this during the presentations today. This means that, for example, in this project, EnTimeMent, a European-funded project from Horizon 2020, is a FET proactive project that deals with the analysis, automated analysis and prediction of human movement qualities. So not so much which movement is done, but how it is done and how this movement is related to a group activity, so joint actions. So to describe what we call the mid-level and social signals that occurs in human interaction. So we'll see in the various experiments such kind of experiments that we are doing in this project. EnTimeMent is a 4-year project. And we are toward the end of the 3rd year. And today we'll see 6 samples from relevant experiments that are going on in the project. And if I have to say in a few words what EnTimeMent mission and what are the goal of EnTimeMent is to open a new path towards a novel technology of motion capture. So not so much to understand the XYZ and the precise position of the elbow or of a joint of the human body, but to understand the quality of movement. If I'm moving my hand forward for a caress, for a punch, or for which kind of intention, and with what kind of entrainment of synchronization with other people involved in the action. So is going toward a novel generation of motion capture and movement analysis and prediction techniques. So this is a very quick introduction to the topics and to the arena, to the playground in which EnTimeMent is challenging new direction of scientific research. The first presentation is by Erwin Schunderwald. I'm sorry, my pronunciation is not so good, Erwin. We know
that's all right.
All right, thank you, Erwin. And I must say, I will tell the thanks and the appreciation of the work of the whole consortium and the many people that contributed during these 2 weeks. But first of all, I want to thank Qualis and the team at Qualis, Erwin, Stan, and Daniel, that supported the consortium for the whole 2 weeks, and also besides also the project. And so I am really grateful and express also on behalf of all the partners our appreciation and thanks to Qualis for the support to this really important for us event. So Erwin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Antonio. Likewise, for us at Qualis, this is a very great opportunity to participate in a project like this and to be able to have this kind of collaborations and see what is actually going on in this kind of research and being close to that. So it's really something we enjoyed very much ourselves too. I'm wondering if it would be possible to share my screen because I had some slides, but if that's not possible, I can just
yes, please
take it from there. Because when I try, it says host disabled participants screen sharing. So something needs to be done by on your side, I guess. Yeah. Oh yeah, I see. So I'll start my presentation. There we go. Yeah, so as I said, I'm just going to give a very short overview of Qualis's markerless mocap solutions we currently have. And also, give a short introduction for this markerless mocap campaign so that I can introduce the technology so that the partners don't have to tell about that anymore. Firstly, I would like to, Antonio, you already mentioned all of us, but we have been with several people involved here. So here are the persons. It's me presenting currently. I'm working in the field applications and support team, and I also have a background in music performance research. So I'm also been active in the EnTimeMent project as a representative for Qualis. Stan Remelk, he is our markerless markerless specialist, and he is part of the machine learning team, where he is also involved in the development of markerless mocap solutions, and he has also been in the supporting at Casa Paganini during the second week of the markerless mocap campaign. And Daniel Bassett. He is scientific director at Totem Motum and founder of Bassett Biomechanics. He is a specialist in biomechanics and a very important partner of Qualis. Maybe some of you will recognize him as the presenter and also the producer of Q Academy tutorials we have on our website. And he is also a distributor of Qualis in Italy. So very short, some words about Qualis for people who don't know us. We are a leading provider of 3D motion capture systems, which are used in different application areas, like we have biomechanics, research and clinical, sports biomechanics, also engineering and animation and VR. So it's quite a wide variety of customers we have. We have our headquarters in Gothenburg. And we also have locations in Chicago and Shanghai. And we have a worldwide network of partners and distributors. So here you see an example of.
Sorry, Erwin, we don't see your slides.
Oh. Okay, I'll see if I can do anything to share the screen again. You haven't been seeing the slides all the time? Okay. Interesting. There we go. Then I'll take it from here. I just showed some pictures of us here. Let's see. Do you see now? Do you see the slides now? I think so, huh? Yeah, so I'll continue where I was. So this is a typical marker-based mocap, traditional motion capture we had. So we have several types of cameras where we can do this kind of things. And what you saw on that video was an overlay where you see you have to place markers on the body, which are used for tracking these 3D positions, and then we can fit skeleton and this kind of things and do movement analysis on that. Since a couple of years, we have also been employing markerless motion capture. The video was very quick. You can see it's video based on video systems only, so there's no markers to be placed on the body. And we also have a solution where we have a camera type which can do both of them, and you can use it either as marker or in the video mode for markerless motion capture. And this is especially for customers who want to try both varieties of motion capture, but yeah, don't want to have a double camera system. And a typical markerless system it looks pretty much like a regular mocap system where you have several cameras connected in a chain. And for the videos, we can currently have up to 24 cameras, depending on the computer specifications. You need a quite powerful computer in order to be able to collect such video streams. The calibration is working in the same way as for regular mocap systems. So we have the same way. It can also be combined. So you have marker cameras and a lot of video cameras, and you can do both at the same time. And we have also the same ecosystem as what we have for the marker-based. So we have all the integrations with force plates, eye trackers, instrumented treadmills, EMGs, etc., available for this kind of thing. So it's quite an ecosystem of solutions we have, both for marker-based but also for markerless, which can all be combined there. So markerless software, we have currently 2 software integrations for markerless mocap. The first is Thea Markerless. That is also the one we have been employing for this markerless mocap campaign. It's suitable for biomechanical applications. And yeah, it's basically you record the videos and then you need to post-process the data and obtain the skeletons. And it's integrated in QTM in a way that we have a very nice structured way of collecting the data, and it's very easy to process it afterwards by just pushing a button. The other solution we have, I'm not going to focus on that, but it's with the Capture, and this is more suitable for real-time markerless tracking, which is more targeted towards VR and live feedback applications. So here we see an example of how the markerless tracking in Thea looks like. So this is just a normal video, and then you see the skeleton, which is resulting from the markerless detections. Basically, Thea is detecting points on the body, landmarks, and combines that information from all the different cameras, and in that with that information is able to construct the skeleton, which is adapted to all the body segments. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to finish my. I'm very curious to hear about what the other partners did. So I'm taking it short here. Just the EnTimeMent Markerless mocap campaign was interesting for us. It's part of the evaluation of the EnTimeMent use scenarios, which we are involved in, and we thought this would be a very good and pragmatic way to come together and really do something together as an effort to evaluate these different use scenarios. And for us, it's also a nice way to explore different types of applications of markerless technology, which I mean, mainly these kind of technologies have been developed for biomechanics applications, for example, gait analysis or sports biomechanics. But here, I think there's quite a wide range of other applications which can be interesting for markerless, and especially in situations, any kind of situations where you can have a camera volume, as which you of course still need, but where it's typically difficult to apply markers. And this is, you will see some examples. We have had some very nice examples from the partners there. You see some pictures of that. And yeah, I think it would be, it was also a very nice possibility for the research partners to get acquainted with Markerless technology and then just be able to explore it and see what is out there. And also to be able to collect some feedback, which can be useful to further develop this kind of technology. So what are specific requirements from the research community for this kind of more challenging applications? So for us, it's also very interesting to collect that information and see how we can use that to further improve our solutions there. So I'm going to leave the floor to the next person, and I'm really curious what has happened there.
Thank you very much, Erwin. I'm sorry for the missed share the screen, but
No
we'll see several examples of what you have described very clearly. And the first, so now we start with the presentation of 6 experiments. More precisely, our feasibility studies for the experiments that are going on in EnTimeMent. The first one is participation and interaction in childhood disability. And this is a work that is going on with the Gaslini Children Hospital and our group of Casa Paganini Infomus at University of Genoa. And we have the pleasure to host here the director of the unit for cognitive and physical rehabilitation at the Gaslini Children Hospital, Paolo Moretti, that I invite to come here to present the work. Okay, thank you, Paolo. I leave you the floor physically also.
Thank you, Antonio. My name is Paolo Moretti and I work at Gaslini Children Hospital. I am a children rehabilitation doctor and I am asked to restore the functioning of the child when drugs or surgery cannot heal him. In rehabilitation, participation and interaction are considered the most important goals to achieve to restore functioning. Participation and interaction are social complex behaviors in which time is a critical dimension. These behaviors are still more complex when we have to study and to plan early and timely treatment in young disabled children. In these cases, we have to take into account, in addition to the severity of the impairment, also other variables as the age with the development of the child and the family. The short videos that now I show you and that we have recorded in last days of mock-up Markerless campaign, I think would be useful to better understand the complexity of the challenge that we are facing up. In the first video, we can see a children, if it is walking, it is working. We can go with the video. To study gait at this young age was a serious problem until now, but with these new markerless systems, this problem is almost completely resolved. And this is really a great thing for us because the gait in little child is extremely variable and is very difficult to study with traditional mock-up systems. In the second series of video, we can see some examples, if we can go of cooperative interaction. This is the main object of EnTimeMent scenario 1. And here we have still, I think we have still to work in this last year of the project to obtain better result, because the actual systems have some difficulty to catch really all the multi-layered signal that we have to catch for saying that we are able to evaluate the quality of participation and of interaction. We can say a good example where we have a really high reciprocity in the dyadic sketch with the mother and the child. They are synchronized. Then we have a second type of situation, storytelling, another cooperative interaction, in which we can say we can sing also some signals of good interaction, but other signal of tension. So we have a moment in which the child is and mother are well synchronized. Other moment in which we can catch some signal of tension, and not always the child is feeling very confident in the situation. But you can see that in these examples we have many signals, different kind of signals. And then now we can see as the child is not so confident in his position, he tried to adjust himself on the seat. In some moment he lose the on-task persistence. And we are trying to compare our quotation with standardized tools as CIB, Codic Interactive Behavior, that is a tool that we use currently for quoting the quality of the interaction with the signal that the new systems can catch. Here is the last examples in which we can see a cooperative interaction in a simulated treatment of rehabilitation, in which the therapist asks to the child to use only left arm, and in this case we have normal children, but the difficulty with disabled children are more well, in the next year of the project, we are trying to integrate, to add many kind of signal, also physiological signal as heart frequency and other, and to integrate all, to have a landscape of this quality, that is the participation, that is really very, very important for our goals in rehabilitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paolo. Okay, thank you very much, Paolo, for this very interesting example. This is the scenario 1 of the EnTimeMent project. We have 3 scenarios, and we will present these examples from these scenarios. And you can see, for example, the problems that are related to what I was telling about something that is at the higher level with respect to the traditional motion capture. So the relation child therapist, so the synchronization of the heads, how much there is a synchronization, how much there is a measure or some cues that can be measured in order to have a quantitative data about the participation, about the level of interaction, of attention, the level of the quality of the joint action between a caregiver and the child. Now we pass to the second example, the second experiment that is on intentions and emotions. That is an experiment led by the Maastricht University from the group of Beatrice de Gelder, cognitive neuroscientist. And I think we have connected Marta Pollo Solanas, who will present the experiment that we conducted here at Casa Paganini with them. So Marta, are you here?
And yes, I'm here. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear and see your slides. So thank you. The floor is
that is perfect. Thank you. Thanks for having me. So as Antonio said, I'm Marta. I'm coming from the Brain and Emotion Lab led by Professor Beatrice de Gelder at Maastricht University. And today, in the context of this event, I want to give another example of the importance of developing and using technologies for body detection and movement tracking. And in this particular case, for investigating the perception of emotion from body movements. As you may all know, we are all experts at recognizing emotions from body movements and body postures, but we don't really understand yet the mechanisms underlying this ability. In our lab, we tried to investigate this question by looking particularly at the postural and kinematic information of body movements and body postures and how that relates to the emotional perception as well. In addition to this, we want to know where this postural and kinematic body information is encoded in the brain and how that also relates to emotional processes. To investigate those 2 questions, we use videos of like actors depicting an angry, a happy, a neutral, or a fearful body movement. And to get the information from the body movement, we use, in this particular case, OpenPose, which is an algorithm that gives you the X and Y coordinates of a total of 18 body key points. We unfortunately didn't have markerless mock-up data, but instead we made use of this algorithm. And we obtained this information that I just mentioned for the total duration of the video. In our case, it was a 1-second video that had 25 frames. Even though we use OpenPose because we didn't have any other available tool, we struggle a little bit because sometimes OpenPose doesn't correctly estimate the body position. So we had to manually correct the joint information of some missing key points. So for example, when a body part was occluding another or an object was occluding some body part. But in any case, we gather all this information from OpenPose and we computed several kinematic and postural body features and taken from the literature. And we did this because the body, as you know, is a multidimensional object. It contains a lot of information, but unfortunately, we don't have a model that is biologically plausible and that can tell us which features to take and which features to look into that are important for emotion recognition. So we base our feature selection on previous literature. And for example, as kinematic features, we selected velocity, acceleration, or vertical movement, or the vertical displacement of these body joints. And as postural body features, we selected some, for example, like the symmetry of the body and the surface, the angles between the body segments, or the limb contraction. And with the open pose information, we calculated these features, and then we perform an analysis called representational similarity analysis that basically gives this output, the one that you can see on the screen. So one matrix per feature. And basically these matrices are showing you the pairwise comparison of feature values between videos. So each square here, each cell of this matrix is a pairwise comparison of feature values in between pairs of videos, where the blue indicates similarity and yellow dissimilarity, and they are organized as the emotional category matrix here. So anger will be on top, followed by happiness, neutral, and fear. And what we can basically take from this slide is that kinematic features do not really differentiate well between emotional categories from body movements, but instead we see this differentiation in the postural matrices, in the postural features. For example, there was a clear difference between neutral and the rest of the emotional categories for symmetry, which also was present for the limb angles, as well as a clear differentiation of fearful body movements with respect to the rest for this particular feature. The same was also for limb contraction, a little bit dissimilarity for fearful with respect to the rest of the categories. So here, as I mentioned, we basically took the videos, extracted the body pose, computed the features, and investigated how they relate to emotion. But we also wanted to know where this postural and kinematic information is encoded in the brain. So we basically presented the same videos to participants inside the scanner, and we obtained the neural activity. And to see where these features are encoded in the brain, we just correlated these feature matrices to the neural ones and obtained areas where these features are encoded in the brain. In this case, it was the feature of limb contraction that was separated between fearful and the rest of the emotional categories. And we saw that this feature was encoded in several areas in the brain that, interestingly, are also very much related to fear. So yeah, very interesting results. To conclude, for this project, we saw that postural rather than kinematic features reflect better the emotion represented by body postures, and that we can actually, with this type of methodology, find systematic relations between body features and brain activity. But as well, with this project, we realized that we need a model that is biologically plausible and can explain body expression perception and guide us in future experiments. And finally, it also showed the importance of having reliable movement tracking techniques. And for that, it shows the importance of the work of the whole EnTimeMent team and Qualis in particular. And yeah, I'm super excited about these advances and implementing them in this project as well. If you're interested, we have two empirical studies, one relating the features to behavioral ratings and the other one to brain activity, and as well an opinion paper talking about this framework and the way of studying emotional body expressions in relation to these features. So that's all for me. If you have any questions, so.
Thank you very much, Marta. And this is a very interesting premise and understanding of the research line that you are leading, and that is very helpful to explain what you did during these weeks here in Genova, in which basically we had pairs, so 2 people interacting in the simulation of emotional behaviors, so short emotional behavior, like 2 people, one behind the other, and touching the shoulders from behind, and then you turn and with a positive or a negative emotion. And so we had the possibility to design such kind of data set using the Qualis Markerless technology, in which I must say, but Marta, please confirm my impression, that the quality and the level of recognition from the new technology from Qualis was very promising and successful, with very few problems in the movement acquisition. So this week was a step further, and to let's say, to go beyond the problems that having only open pose give to your wonderful research in neuroscience. So I think that this is a very good step to go beyond the results that you achieved and you described so well.
Yeah, absolutely, Antonio. You're absolutely right. I'm super excited about these new advances by Qualis, and indeed they overcome many obstacles that we encounter with the use of other tools such as OpenPose, as I mentioned during the talk. So yeah, I'm very excited to use this new tool in new scenarios, more naturalistic scenarios, also with interactions as we were recording recently. So yeah.
Yes, and it was a very important experience also, in which you and Giuseppe Marrazzo and our team of Simone Ghisio, Corrado Canepa, Roberto Sagoleo, and others joined to try to collect a significant data set for future research. So
yes,
that's we collected, I think, 10 subjects, 10 participants. So
I think it was 12, at the end 12, I think, and yeah, very good quality. Or yeah, many different types of interactions with different classes of emotions. So yeah.
And we have to thank also our students of the digital humanities classes, that some of them are here, that were so kind to participate as a participant to the experiment. Okay, thank you very much, Marta. We can, I think we can go on with the next presentation. It is on the kinematics of intentions in reach to grasp actions by Cristina Becchio of the Italian Institute of Technology. Is another fascinating experiment and research line that is one of the important research lines of EnTimeMent. So I leave the floor now to Cristina. And also to Maria Carla, sorry.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you so much. And we are really excited about this opportunity to share the experience of this markerless recording at Casa Paganini. We had great fun, and I'm really grateful to Qualis with thanks to their really excellent support. We were able to acquire high quality data. The recordings were extremely ambitious, and soon you will see a video showing the setup. Yeah, a video showing the setup. You will see that there is a forest of cameras, because we recorded, as Maria Carla will explain in a minute, using both infrared cameras and video cameras. What we do in our lab is hosted at the Italian Institute of Technology. We study motor cognition, that is the role of the motor system in cognitive processes and decision processes. And specifically, we are interested in prospective planning. So consider the simple act, as you see here in the video, of reaching towards and grasping a bottle. If you think about when you move your hand towards the bottle, it's not only that you are moving your hand in space, you are also bringing your hand into the future. So you are planning for the future. The hand is not there, and you are planning to move the hand towards a target that is in the future. And what we see in our recording is that people do not only take into account the features, the characteristics of the object, but also take into account what they will be doing next with the object. We describe this as second order prospective planning. And what we wanted to really understand with this markerless acquisition at Casa Paganini was whether it is possible to quantify the very subtle features that specify intention information. So this planning for the future in the action without using markers. And Maria Carla will tell you exactly what we did.
Thank you. Yeah. So maybe if it is possible to play again the video. Yeah, thank you. So as Christina said, we had an experiment in which basically people had to reach and grasp a bottle with two possible intentions, either to pour the water into a small glass, as you see here in the video, or to drink the water from the bottle. The setup, thanks again for to the help of Qualis, Erwin in particular, in this case was challenging because we had 14 cameras. 9 of them were video cameras for the markerless system, and 5 were only for the marker. We had 2 sessions per participant. One with marker and one without markers. And this is because, as you can see, our focus is on the movement of the hand. And since the hand has a lot of degrees of freedom, it's really challenging to develop a model, a markerless model to study the kinematic of the hand. So we planned with each participant either a session with marker and one without, in order to help hopefully the development of the model, a markerless model for the hand, and on the other hand, sorry, to test using markers to test as a benchmark the markerless model. What can I say?
Well, perhaps one last important point. You may ask, so what? In the end, you are recording the motions of a person grasping a bottle. Why is this interesting? It's interesting for a number of reasons. It's interesting because this prospective planning is key to interaction with the external world, is key to social interaction, and the information that is specified in movement kinematics can be used by human observers to predict another person's action. And in collaboration with Gaslini Children's Hospital here in Genova, we study the encoding and the readout of this information, not only in neurotypical adults, but also in children and in children with autism spectrum disorders. And what we see is that autism is specifically characterized by atypicalities in the prospective planning and control of reach to grasp actions. So I guess that's it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cristina and Maria Carla. I must say that it was astonishing while building this setup that is very different from our setup that we have usually at Casa Paganini, that now it has not been yet rebuilt, but it is, I think, the most beautiful motion capture setup. I would say an artistic installations that if you notice from the pictures was really beautiful setup. And I take this comment about art to mention the next experiment. That is an experiment that is going on between our two partners, our group at Casa Paganini and the group at Euromove, University of Montpellier, with Benoît Bardy and Marta Bienkiewicz. It is indeed an experiment, a scientific experiment that is aiming at discovering the cues that are related of social behavior in small groups. So how a small number of people that behave in doing an action, when they become a single organism, that is, they achieve an effectiveness, as successful in doing their joint action in such a way that they go beyond the sum of the individuals. So when a group of people becomes an organism, that means to reach an entrainment, to reach a synchronization, but it's not a synchronization like the military march is a movement. It's the entrainment and is something very sophisticated, very complex, and in which there is the leadership of the people that are doing the action together, in which the leadership is migrating fluidly between one to the other. And what is better than dance that can express and be a showcase in which to study this phenomenon of entrainment and leadership? Also, the experiment at Gaslini has this core problem in the dyad, so in the mother-child or caregiver-child. And so we have Cora Gasparotti, who is here near me. And she is a choreographer and dancer, and we work with her. She's participating to experiments. And while doing a previous experiment in a brainstorming session, came out the idea that dancers, when they are preparing to dance together, they do specific exercises. So Cora, would you say something about these exercises that were the inspiration for our scientific experiment? And this is a very interesting one of the cases in which art can feed concretely the scientific research in order to go beyond the current mainstreams. So Cora.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Casa Paganini and Euromove for having me in this experiment. And yeah, as Antonio said, this is an exercise we used to do in the field of dance to create a sort of feeling of the group in different ways. This is an exercise that, I don't know if we can have the video while I'm speaking. Yeah, this is an exercise that we used to do in the field of dance, both in training, even of really young dancers, to make them comfortable. No, not this one, the first one, yeah, the top view. Yeah, to make them comfortable in work in group, both they already know the members or not. And this is an exercise we use too in the professional field of dance, maybe in dance companies, to do a sort of building team work and to let the choreographer understand the kind of personality he has and the roles that are possible within a group. So in particular for this experiment, we had this exercise for 4 different small groups. As you can see, the groups are composed of 3 different members. And we ask them to do really simple tasks. Of course, we create a particular easy form of that exercise made not for professional dancers or training dancers, but for people. And we ask them to move, keeping a triangle formation through the space with no modification of the form of the triangle. So the triangle could not be wider or shrink in any way. And they had to move in the space, walking just forward, backward, or laterally as they wish. And we asked them to be creative and propose some different actions. We had some actions to take the leadership, to take the lead of the group. And in particular, we have the possibility for the members, whenever they want, who wants to purpose, to stop, or maybe to restart again to walk, or to do a particular movement we create that is coordinated with breath. That is this one we are looking at. That is a particular movement that is composed of 2 different movements. So we have the inhaling action while we are moving laterally to the above of the head, the arms, and of course the exhaling action while we are taking down the arms along the body. And then we had the possibility to give the leadership to one another member of the group, just watching him and waiting for him to take the lead. So this was an experiment just to see if in a short time we can have the possibility to increase the entrainment between the members of the group. And for this, I think it's better to leave the floor for Benoit and Marta to explain the details about it and the measurement and that we use to measure this kind of thing.
Okay. Thanks, Cora. So we leave it to Benoit and Marta to explain the research that we are doing to.
Okay, leave this one, please. Good morning, everyone. So I am here with Marta to discuss a little more that naturalistic situation where in which there are like incredibly interesting questions. So if you look at those 3 dancers, as said by Antonio and Cora, you know, the shape that they're producing and the invariance of the shape is a key aspect that we want to look at. You may know that there is this very important relationship between the synchronization between the biology of these participants, of these dancers, and the cohesion. So there's a wonderful relationship between how well they are synchronized and how much they like each other, likability, empathy, sympathy, cohesion, affiliation, social competencies. All these social aspects are connected to the biological synchronization between them. And when I say synchronization, I mean synchronization between their bodies, the way they walk, the way they move their arm in synchrony with each other, in unison with each other. You're going to see that in a moment. The way they breathe in synchrony. So we're recording, Marta will describe that a little bit more later, the way we record like breathing with their heartbeat. There is this entrainment between the heartbeat signals between them when they're doing this situation. And so we are extremely interested with this in this Markerless mocap campaign. This is just a preliminary feasibility study. We run like 4 or 5 groups over these last 2 days. We're going to have much more groups in the next experiment. Looking at this relationship between the synchronization at those multiple temporal scales of their biological systems and the social entrainment that exists. Can we have the next video? And so Marta will describe a little bit more in a little bit more details those different metrics that we've been using in that situation.
So yeah, in addition to using markerless motion capture, which you can admire here, those are the 3 colorful skeletons fitted to the video image of 3 participants. We have collected ECG data, so electrocardiogram, to look at the heart's activity and to see whether those measures of cohesion and synchronicity are visible in their heart rate and their heart rate variability. And in addition to that, we also collected respiratory signal through the audio microphones they were wearing. So basically, we're looking at cohesion and synchronicity between people, not only on all those metrics mentioned by Benoit via movement, but also cross-modally. So for example, a correlation between their respiration and different agents and their heart rate, and maybe there is a relation between the way they breathe and the way their heart works. So we're going to look through dynamic relations between those 3 signals: movement, respiration, and heart data. And using Markerless definitely is going to make this task way easier. So we're very thankful to Qualis for providing us with this technology, and to everyone, Casa Paganini, for technical support.
And if, just to conclude here, can we still play this video? Because it's a wonderful opportunity to see what real participants are doing. I mean, you understand immediately the interest and the usefulness of the markerless mocap here. So the participants are coming, they're just doing the task, after a short introduction and explanation by Cora, and here we are. And so through the reconstruction of this markerless system, we can then look at the synchronization between their feet. We can look at the intra-body synchronization between the feet and the head, for instance. So looking at those various levels of synchronization at those multiple temporal scales of body movement, respiration, heartbeat, and potentially brain activity in the future is a wonderful opportunity provided by Qualis. And the final comment is that on the top of everything, we have an emotional soundscape that is being played. So negative, positive, sad, happy, tension, all kinds of possibility in the soundscape that you cannot hear, but there was a soundscape underlying this movement. And so the synchronization between this activity and the sound that is being played is also something we are very interested in terms of how emotion can trigger those synchronization phenomena. So this is just a short feasibility study that we ran yesterday and the day before, preparing a naturalistic and a more extensive campaign in 22. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this is another very challenging, and we look forward to go beyond and to continue the collaboration in these very interesting research questions. So now we have another interesting experiment that was conducted the day yesterday morning by the Durham University, by Martin Clayton, that today he left a video to describe his description of this experiment, since he is going back to UK today, so he is traveling and could not be in person. But he prepared last night a video, and then please go. We can appreciate the work that he did in the music performance in Indian music.
Hello and welcome. This is Martin from Durham, speaking to you from my Genoa hotel room on Thursday night, because unfortunately I can't be with you on Friday. But I'm just going to briefly introduce the work we've been doing at Durham and where this work with Markerless mocap fits in. So what we've been working on in particular is exploring movement in Indian music performance. Why study movement through Indian music? Well, there are two main reasons, I think. First of all, the music comprises a very rich repertoire of musical entities, modes by the name of ragas, which relate to things like character, mood, and emotion. In other words, they offer a very rich collection of expressive behaviors. Secondly, the music is performed generally in small groups of between 2 and 5 people, so it offers a very useful test bed for the study of small group interactions, in particular where you have very distinct roles. Different individuals in a group have distinct roles, and there's often a clear hierarchy between those roles. So in short, the movement data informs us about individual aspects of movement, but also cultural aspects, affective aspects, and interactive aspects of these expressive behaviors. But the first thing we've done over the last few months is to work with pose estimation software to extract movement from video recordings. And here's an example of which I'll play you a few seconds. This is an excellent Indian singer by the name of Apurva Gokhale, who is singing Sri Rag, a very well-known North Indian mode. And this we recorded in our studio in Durham in 2020, just before the lockdown. As I play this, you'll immediately get the idea of the expressive bimanual gestures in particular, which are sort of often remarked on in this kind of singing. What my colleagues and I have done is to work on optimizing the output of a pose estimation software called OpenPose, which is one of the better known ones. So doing things like working on selecting only the data points we need, interpolating missing data, and applying a smoothing algorithm to the whole thing to produce a more convincing estimation of the body movement. And here's an example of the same clip, but with the data visualized in the form of a partial skeleton. So you can see how this looks. So as you can see, the result is not perfect, but it's not a bad estimation of the main bodily movements of the singer in this case. And what we've done with that data is to then apply some machine learning algorithms to predict the identity of the singer, where we have a pool of recordings of different singers, and also to predict the identity of the raga of the musical entity that's being performed. So this is quite good, quite successful work, we think, so far. But more interesting, I think, is what we can do in the future with this. We can look, hopefully, at things like qualities of movement, relating movement quality to affect. And we can also look, we have started to work on pose estimation with group recording, so we can start to look at things like interaction and leadership in ensembles. Oh, we can also, using OpenPose, use hand pose data as well. So we're just starting to integrate that into the same approach. Okay. So what are we doing with the Markerless mocap? Well, there are, of course, limitations when we use something like OpenPose with a standard 25 frames per second video, including, obviously, it's 2D information, so we don't have any depth information. There are 3D pose estimation programs also available, and we have worked with them as well, but so far we're not very convinced that they offer any advantage over the OpenPose system. And of course we have low resolution, low temporal resolution and spatial resolution compared to motion capture systems. On the other hand, we don't necessarily want to use conventional mocap systems, and with the constraints they bring in terms of kind of dress that people can wear, having to add markers, and so on and so forth. So, can the Markerless mocap system help by providing more accurate three-dimensional data? Well, we've started trying to find out, and we made our first recordings today as I speak, with the help of a Italian-based singer of Indian music by the name of Margit Trumpa. And I'm going to play you a brief clip here. Okay, so, well, it's yesterday by the time you're watching this video. We have proper synchronization between the video and the audio track, but I've not had time or the facilities in my hotel room to do a proper synchronization yet, so please bear with me. But here are 3 views of a short clip of Margit. Okay, so there's a first tantalizing glimpse of just 3 of the video views. Well, the next stage is to see what the motion data looks like, and well, watch this space. We're very excited about the possibility, but only time will tell how this all works out. So thanks very much for watching and listening, and thanks to Jin Lee, Alison Clark and Marianne Weinziel for all the computational stuff that I certainly couldn't have done on my own. Goodbye.
So thanks to Martin Clayton for this important contribute that was done last night after doing the recordings and of the experiment yesterday morning. So we are moving to the last experiment that we describe as supporting musculoskeletal chronic pain management by University College London. And we have connected Nadia Bertuz from the UCL that will present the experience that has been done a few days ago during the campaign. Thank you, Nadia, for being here. Are you there? Nadia, we can see your slides, but we cannot hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, 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 perfect. Okay, thank you, Nadia.
So thank you very much, Antonio, for the introduction, and thanks everybody to be here to listen to us. So Nadia Bertuz from the University College London, and the work I'm doing within the project is related to the application and the use and the opportunities that motion capture technology can offer to create a new way to facilitate self-management for people that have chronic pain. So how to facilitate the physical rehabilitation, for example. As many of you may already know, physical rehabilitation in this long-term condition doesn't really occur in hospital most of the time, or it doesn't occur just in terms of exercise session, but it's fully integrated in people's life. So when we talk to patients, for them, physical rehabilitation occur as they go to walk to work, or they enjoy their time with their children, or they do their chores in their house, and so on. It's really any form of movement that take place in their life. That's where rehabilitation take place. So we are interested in see how movement sensing technology, together with other form of sensing, so we already heard about heart rate and respiration and many more, muscle activity, could be used to provide a support that doesn't exist, the same support that we have in the clinic, and that doesn't exist in everyday life. So it's like creating a little physiotherapist that observe you and help you to manage better and to engage in physical activity. People with chronic pain tend to avoid movement with the feeling that movement may lead to increased pain, or with the fear to create more injury. But unfortunately, this avoidance of movement or engagement in movement that allow you to protect a part of your body, sit down by just weighting all your weight, or bringing the weight on one side of your body. All these type of strategies lead to further deterioration. So one aim of physical rehabilitation is to help people to engage in activity, and also try to avoid this protective behavior and having a much more fluid movement. So what we're doing within the EnTimeMent is to use the sensing technology to gather data from the movement together with other sensors, and develop artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithm that detect when protective behavior or avoidance occur, or moment of anxiety kick in as the person engage in physical activity. And then the technology with this information can provide on the fly, on the moment, when the people need suggestion or encouragement to move, or remembering strategies like breathing more deeply to relax, to remove the tension in their body, or pacing. So it's like creating this physiotherapists that come with you and is aware of your body and help you to engage in physical activity. We have been doing data collection of pain behavior, and we are doing in people home with the collaboration of people with chronic pain and other clinicians. So we are building a data set that will be used to improve further this machine learning algorithm and device intervention. What we have done in these 2 weeks event, we have been exploring this new type of technology, so markerless motion capture technology, to understand to what extent this technology that is driven by machine learning algorithm is able to detect protective behavior exhibited by patients, because often that depends a lot on the type of data that are used to train the system. So just to, to go to the video, just to give you a feeling of what we have done, as this was just a need for us, a testing of the technology, so you will recognize me. I play the person with chronic pain and also the person that has not chronic pain, and to just start to initial testing for this new type of motion capture, and to see And now we have collected quite a lot of data. So the next phase in the next week to analyze this data and to see the difficulties. But just to show, to give you a feeling of the type of movement that we are interested in gathering. I just mind you that it's me, so I may be exaggerating a little bit those movements, and sometimes maybe you'll see that, you know, it may not really fully reflect how a patient would move. But for us, it's a good test bed for then starting to work with patients, even with this technology. So a typical exercise you do in physical rehabilitation is to build that confidence, just even in standing up from a chair. Here I'm loading a washing machine, so you can see already some problem because of the typical occlusion of sensor. Some bracing behavior where you support your body with your own hands. So here I'm not avoiding, I'm engaging, but I use this strange strategies that make the movement a little bit awkward, but that is really important for the system to detect. So what I would like to mention here is two cases. One, as I say, we are collecting data, as you saw, in real life situation in the home, as people are cleaning their house or are playing with their kids. These are the data we are very interesting, and we are using wearable sensor. How is that this motion capture that been presented to you from Qualis is become interesting for us is because there are a lot of questions still from the clinical perspective, the psychological perspective, understanding how pain behavior relate to the emotional state the person is in, how it relates to the social context the person is moving. So I see the potential of this technology, not just to collect real data to drive the machine learning technique, but also to work as researcher and with psychologists and clinicians to further our understanding of pain behavior, and also developing then new type of intervention that can make pain management possibly more effective. I'm not saying easier, but more effective. So this technology is really powerful, very quick to set up, compare old motion capture. For us is becoming important to understand how we can build data sets that will contribute to the machine learning that is built for this type of technology. And I end here, and I'm happy to then discuss more if you have a question, but thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for this very effective description of the so exciting research direction that you are leading. So it's is a very important direction, and is very important for the many reasons in society. Is very important, and the reason that this is the second scenario that we adopted in EnTimeMent. So this is we have 3 scenarios in EnTimeMent, and this is scenario 2 that is very complex and challenging. So thank you very much. And it has also implication, this kind of research, also in even broader directions, because I suspect that, for example, in everyday movement, also for healthy people to understand movement that can be dangerous in terms of injuries, or let's say in sport or in music playing, to understand possible causes or situation in which you can help people to avoid situation that cause chronic pain. And that is very, very interesting.
Yeah, there is indeed a lot of application for elderly, for sports context, to all what we are studying in terms of analysis of movement, and also development of AI system that connect movement data to quality of movement to emotional state are very important in many situations for sports, but even in the context of acute pain, post-surgery, to understand how the person recover and how the person psychologically is tackling their situation to ensure that you avoid, as you say, crossing from acute to chronic pain. But I think the number of application of what we are doing is really wide. And for me, that the type of technology we have explored this week is really interesting for deepening our understanding of the relationship between movement, quality of movement, and emotion. As it is easy to use, we can easy to set up, and much more. Hopefully, as we go on, we can see a much cleaner data that can be easily gathered and used for data analysis without a lot of calibration processes.
Okay, thank you very much again, Nadia. So we have concluded the list of experiments. So the scenario 1 was on the children disabilities that was described, and then scenario 2 is on chronic pain that has been described by Nadia. The scenario 3 is, and all the scenario have a broad possibilities of exploitation and application. And the scenario 3 is the one that we described together, Benoit Bardy in Montpellier, in which we did not tell enough about the potential of this, the group information. So the positional triangle of the people moving around. You can imagine, for example, a soccer team in football, we say in Italy, and a soccer team, and to relate the formation and the synchronization and the leadership, the successful leadership of a soccer team group in achieving a goal, to make a goal in a soccer play. This is a natural exploitation of this kind of research, for example, in which measurement that have been described in this experiment can have a strong impact. So these are the 3 scenarios, and I conclude here, and I leave the floor to Federico Smanio, the CEO of YLab, and we have the pleasure to have YLab together, GDI Hub of London as our third parties. That is our reference, our I might say our lighthouses in which to guide us and to give us back feedback in order to have our research that sometimes is fundamental, is very basic, to get closer to the exploitation and to the application field. So I leave Federico, I leave you the floor and look forward to listen to your roundtable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonio. Very pleasure to be here, and I'm really happy to facilitate the second part of this great event. I'm very happy. It's going to be a roundtable, but before starting, let me just tell you that I'm really happy to be here at Casa Paganini. I think this place is really inspiring, and it's such a refreshing place to come and to hear all these beautiful experiments. We met a couple of years ago in September. It was September 2019, if you remember. Seems like an age, and lots of things have happened so far. So the idea of this roundtable is to bring together professionals coming from different backgrounds, different companies, different worlds, and present them the EnTimeMent projects and the results that have been achieved so far, and to allow them to give us feedback, ideas, insights on the things that they've seen and the future developments of the projects, and especially in view of some possible and hopeful application in real life, society, and business. That's the main idea. I'm Federico Smanio. I'm the CEO of YLab. I'm a former professional soccer player, so my background is a bit different from the other people involved here. I've then been a manager in sports, and now I'm a CEO of YLab. I won't show, well, we can see a video, watch a 1-minute video to explain what YLab is.
YLab is a place where to share, innovate and shape your projects, exchange experiences, ideas and professionalism in a young, dynamic and modern environment. We are the first incubator in Italy for startups developing innovation in sports. We select and support the best Italian and international talents with tutorship and funding. Sharing the work environment means creating new job opportunities, new contacts, and being in the front row of sports tech innovation. We organise courses, workshops and conferences, providing knowledge, stimulating curiosity, promoting real and specific skills to innovate technology and business.
Okay, that's YLab, and of course we do different things. We have a co-working space, we organize training courses, we do also open innovation programs with corporates, which is something that means we sit down with companies, we try to understand their innovation goals, and we try to achieve these goals through the help of startups. But the main thing that we do is related to startups, and especially startups in the sports scene. So we look for young companies that develop solutions, application technologies, products and services in the area of sports tech, which is basically could be performance analysis, even motion capture, even computer vision. And those three things are some of the trends that we are seeing in sports, something that is going to be developed soon. And that's something that it's really interesting to understand if we can develop it further in the business. One of the things that it's interesting for me is, for example, as Antonio was mentioning, the idea of how players move together in a synchronized way. What combination of players can be most successful in a football team? Yesterday, I was lucky to moderate an event. It was the YLab Sports Tech Week, and we invited some, I would say, prominent figures in Italian football. One of these was the sports director of Bologna FC, the Serie A football club. And he told us that one of the most difficult things is to bring players together. So when he sees agents and the agents tell him, hey, listen, I have these players, this is a great player for your team. This is a great player. And he says, okay, that's great, but that's not enough for me. I need to know if that player is good for my team. It's good to play together with the other team. So this is a main challenge for football right now, understanding not just how a player is good at playing football, but how a player matches with the other components of the team, for example. So that's the exercise that I would like all the panelists to do, is to tell us what they do, what their companies do, and how their work relates to the EnTimeMent projects. And I would kindly ask all panelists to do this in 5 minutes as a first round of questions. So I'm happy to introduce you 5 speakers, 5 panelists. 2 of these will be connected online and 3 will be here present physically in Casa Paganini. First one is Kate Mattick. Kate?
Hi there. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Good to meet you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So I can see Nadia's just started to share a screen. Thank you, Nadia. So I'm here representing the Global Disability Innovation Hub, and we have a video from Professor Kathy Holloway, the academic director of GDI Hub, who will just share a few thoughts about EnTimeMent project before I offer a hello for myself. I don't know if we've got a sound. Can you hear?
No.
Nadia, you might have to share the sound as you share the screen.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that should work now.
Hello everybody, I'm Kathy Holloway. I'm the Academic Director of the Global Disability Innovation Hub and a Professor of Interaction Design and Innovation at UCL's Interaction Centre. Very quickly today, going to tell you about the GDI Hub's involvement in EnTimeMent and why we think it's so important. And to start with, I'm going to explain our story. We were born out of the London 2012 Paralympic Games, which was the most successful Paralympics of its time. It was the first time the Paralympics was sold out, and it shifted the energy globally as well as in London about what is possible for disability inclusion. We looked to see how we could leverage that to continue its legacy. And on the eve of the Rio Paralympics, the Mayor of London launched the Global Disability Innovation Hub, which is two things. It's a not-for-profit organisation and an academic research centre. Both are housed here at UCL. How we work? Well, we work across different domains: assistive technology and accessible technology, inclusive design of the built environment, inclusive educational technology, climate and crisis resilience, cultural participation, and partnerships and collaborations underpin all of that work. And then we work across verticals of research, innovation, programs, teaching, and advocacy. This EnTimeMent project obviously sits within research, and it helps us to contribute to our overall GDI Hub strategy, which includes helping to design 100 new technologies, as well as designing what we call a research, teach, translate cycle, which means that when we are researching, we are also making sure that the next generation are learning about it, and it is translated both to the public as well as to wider stakeholders within networks. Our work to date has all been about partnerships. We develop research partnerships, we develop innovation partnerships, we develop partnerships with governments, and these are globally. We're operational now in 35 countries, and we have reached over 22 million people. We have a growing library of impact case studies, of which EnTimeMent will become one. And I'd encourage you at the end of this short presentation, I'll read some links to go and have a look at what we're doing and see how you can help join the movement. A lot of our work is framed around what we call disability interactions, and that means realizing that the inclusion of all people globally with disability is a wicked problem. It's incredibly difficult because it is interlocked with poverty. Most people in the world who are disabled are poor, and if you are poor, you are more likely to be disabled. And so what does that mean for us when we are designing the next generation of technologies? Well, it means that we can not just design the next generation of technologies, but we can make sure that if we co-create those solutions with disabled people, we can begin to unlock some of the most challenging problems of our time. We can make sure that the next generation of technology, in this case, movement capture prediction, like technology, which is learning from the behaviors of people, can be not just designed for people without disabilities, but for the 1 billion people globally, that's 15% of the population, who live with a disability. We can make sure that the technology is usable by them, which means that they will have the same access to the opportunities that technology affords. Currently, many technologies are not designed with all people's needs in mind. And this means that they are not usable by disabled people. We see, for example, many websites, simple technology like websites, are still not accessible. Even FTSE 100 companies do not make their websites accessible to blind and visually impaired people. And this means that those people are unable to access those services. So we believe that by following the Disability Interactions framework, we are able to unlock the potential of disabled people globally, but also unlock the potential of those markets to drive further economic growth. We don't just work in research. I'd like to mention we've helped to establish the first assistive technology accelerator program in Kenya with our partners AMREF. For this, we developed an inclusive entrepreneur toolkit as well as a curriculum, and we've now supported 28 African startups. We also run an assistive technology impact fund globally, and all of this is powered through the Disability Interactions framework. The EnTimeMent project sits at the crossroads of research and innovation. It is a wonderful example of how we will be able to capture and predict movement in the future, and that opens up doors for many different types of applications. My hope is that those applications are designed with and for disabled people as much as they're designed with and for people who consider themselves without disability. Before I hand over to Professor Nadia Bertous, I'd just like to remind us all that at some point we will be living with a disability. And so designing for us for disabled people now means designing for yourself in the future.
Thank you, Nadia. So Kathy couldn't be here today, so I'm Kate Mattick and I work for the Global Disability Innovation Hub. By background, I'm also a physiotherapist, a practicing clinical physiotherapist here in the UK, and have completed a master's in disability design and innovation. And it's been a pleasure to be able to kind of bring my clinical background as a physiotherapist to the world of assistive technology and thinking about human movement and how we can use such technologies to be able to advance research and assistive technologies in this way. So Judy, I hope we're delighted to be able to contribute to this discussion and thinking about how such pieces of equipment can be used to capture data and how that can be can work in thinking about designing new technologies and disability inclusion in the future. So thanks, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for stealing my job. I wanted to introduce you, but you did it much better than myself. So thanks. So I'm happy to introduce one of the Italian's leading technical football analysts. He's worked with the Italian winning team at the World Cup in 2006 and the Euro Championship in 2020. He's also a digital strategy consultant for Infront, which is one big company operating in media and sports. And he's an editorial consultant for RAI, the Italian national TV, and also a TV commentator, and has worked with one very interesting startups called Math and Sports. Please welcome Adriano Bacconi.
Thank you, Federico.
Adriano, good to see you.
Yeah, fine, thanks. It's a pleasure for me stay here with you and in Casa Paganini to give me the opportunity to tell my experience with Math Sport in Italian Serie A league because this is a very innovative project for the football. And next Sunday, the innovation manager of FIFA will come here in Italy during the match Inter-Naples to see our system for the next World Cup. So this is more important that the Lega Serie A understand our idea, our tool called Football Virtual Coach, and almost all teams are using this tool in real time during the Serie A matches. So if you want, I can explain quickly the philosophy of this project and then some features.
Please.
So share my screen with you. Okay, the first slide is related to our philosophy, and I started with a quote of a quantum physic, Niels Bohr, that a lot of years ago, without thinking football, right? Why in the past we believed that the objects' properties were determined even if not considering the interactions between some object and the others, quantum physics proves that interactions are inseparable part of the events. A non-ambiguous description of any events requires the inclusion of all objects involved within the interaction on which the event happens. And this is the same things that during the match happens. The objects in this metaphor are the players, and the players have the functions to do during the match from the coaches. And then with between the players, there are the interaction and generate the final events. So our approach is to understand this part of the match, the invisible side of the match. And I give you an example with this matrix. There are 3 levels of knowledge, the match. The first is the contact between the ball and the player, the single events, the single event. The second is the line that track the movement of the players and the ball, like the long pass from the initial position to the final. But the more important thing is the space analysis, the analysis of the area between the player, below the player. In this example, we are the blue area covered by the team in possession of the ball, and the green area covered from the players without the ball in the defensive phases. So the elements, the single elements is the player. Each players have a function. In this case, Barella, the interplayers, have the function to run box to box in the vertical way. But the other player is fundamental, in this case Lukaku, to go forward in opposite side, to create the empty...
Adriano, excuse me, Adriano, we're not seeing the screen here at Casa Paganini, even if I'm seeing that the streaming is correctly showing the screen.
Oh,
so just wait a couple of minutes because I don't understand what's going on.
Now you can see the video, the slide, Federico?
No, we're not seeing in this physically here at Casa Paganini, we're not seeing the screen. Even if I'm seeing in YouTube, you are correctly showing the screen. So it's not your problem, it's our problem.
Okay. So we have to wait.
Yes, I just kindly ask you to wait till the technical problem is solved.
Okay.
Thank you. Or at least you could just, I would say, talk without slides if it's possible.
Yeah. I can explain.
Yeah, maybe at the second round you can show the slides when we've solved the problem.
Okay. So it's a bit complex to understand this philosophy without the image. So I go forward in my presentation to explain the setup in the stadium to realize these services, and then the features. If we can then show something, we can come back to the philosophy, okay?
Okay. Just remember you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I finished. So in the stadium, there are 8 cameras put on the ring, and with these cameras, we can create the raw data that go to the cloud, and the cloud, this raw data meet the algorithms that analyze the space and time of these metrics to give the new metrics, the new KPIs, publishing in the app tablet that the coach can see during the match, directly on the bench. And there are 3 kinds of information. The first is the new visualization. The second is the new KPI. And the third, maybe the more important information, the real time, are the message in natural language that the coach can read, like the alert, like the WhatsApp messages. So it's easy to understand the complexity and make the best decision during the match. This is the tool, and I'm happy that now a lot of coach is very happy to use this data.
Adriano, we can see the screen now here. So
perfect. So I can close my philosophy. This is the elements. This is the function. This is the function, for example, to other player, Lukaku, that go in the opposite side related to Barella to create the empty space. So this is the interaction between these two players. So the player with the ball see the empty space, pass the ball there. So this is the final event, but the cause of this event is the empty space. So our aim is to analyze in real time the space, because the players are the empty spaces hunter, and our activities is to predict where the ball will go.
Very, very clear, very interesting, very fascinating. Thanks, Adriano, for the first round. I'm pleased to introduce the other three speakers, which I invite to take a seat here, is Daniel Basset. He's a mechanical engineer, consultant for Qualis, but he's also scientific director of Totu Motu. And then Giorgia Cesarone. She is an electrical and electronics engineer, MBA in technology transfer, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And she's the president of CTI Liguria. And then, last but not least, Paolo Moretti, who you already know, is responsible for functional re-education and physiotherapist at Istituto Giannina Gaslini. So, start from Daniel. Daniel, 5 minutes to introduce yourself, the work that you do, and especially what part of your work is related to this kind of experiments.
Sure, of course. First of all, it's been an absolute pleasure spending a few days here at Casa Paganini. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Maybe a little closer? Okay. Okay. First of all, it's been an absolute pleasure being here at Casa Paganini, working with just incredibly innovative scientists. It's just great to see how the technology can go well beyond my personal experience in research, as I am deeply involved in musculoskeletal biomechanics, which is a completely separate field from what happens here, but there is very interesting overlap. So as you saw, many of the presenters talked about using Markerless motion capture, which is new technology that I've personally been working with as part of both Totem Modem and my other company, Basset Biomechanics, to explore the potential. It is fascinating to see how it's become actually usable in the last year extensively, as originally we were just looking at gait as that's kind of the first stepping stone. And now we're looking at many other uses, as you saw examples today. And actually, I'm coming here straight from a presentation of a video game that actually has very significant overlap with what we've been working on here. And actually, Federico, you might be familiar with CyberGoal, as I believe they came through YLab. We just presented this at Milan Games Week, that it's an interactive game in which a player will kick a ball against a target that is digitally shown on a wall. And we use motion capture to track the motion of this. And we also are experimenting now in using Markerless motion capture to follow the motion of said players and potentially, we can develop statistics, even as we talked today about the reaching motion toward a bottle. Well, we now can also look at exactly what is happening as a soccer player, or sorry, we're in Europe, football player, comes up to kick a ball. We see different mechanics coming into play. And as a biomechanist, I might be interested in the muscular side, but in these days, speaking with Benoit and Antonio, I'm exploring a whole new way of thinking about these motions. So it's exciting to see how all of this can develop in the future. And I'm just glad to be here and have gotten to experience some of this.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Georgia.
Hello, and thank you. As a background, I'm an electronic engineer with a strong background in microelectronics, but I'm also an innovation manager, as you told us. And I'm the founder of two innovative startups. The first one focused on the digital transformation in cultural heritage and with some project in healthcare, while the second one focused on training and education. In fact, I mainly work on skills and on the digital transformation or on the competencies in innovation. And that's why last year I joined the Competence Center Start 4.0 as training manager. But today I'm here as the president of CTI Liguria. CTI is a non-profit association for ICT managers and professionals. And I strongly believe that people should spend some time in volunteering to generate well-being in society. So CTI mission is to continue, a continuous training and the exchange of experiences and ideas between members, because we think that they are the basis to develop new innovative ideas, products, services, and so on. And this is strictly connected to a multidisciplinary approach. And this vision, we share this vision with Antonio, that I want to thank for the kind invitation, because this is the way to generate really innovative ideas. And that's why every year CTI Liguria and Casa Paganini organize the Starts Talks in Genova events, linked with the European Commission initiative called Starts, which stands for Science, Technology and Arts, which aims to support the collaboration between artists, scientists, engineers, and researchers to design more creative, inclusive, and sustainable technology. Because as we see today, the EnTimeMent project combines art, engineer, science, but also human behavior and movement. So we think that this is the way to achieving better results in research and innovation projects. So that's why I'm very, very happy to be here with you tonight.
Thank you, Georgia. So now, Dr. Moretti.
Good afternoon. Antonio assigned me a double role, that of rehabilitation researchers, and that in the part of stakeholder. So I hope don't annoy you. I have already told that I work at the Gaslini Children's Hospital. Gaslini Children's Hospital is one of the main Italian children's hospital. is an hospital where there are all the pediatric specialty, and the Gazzini Children's Hospital is a research institute, and we have many programs in neuroscience, in rheumatology, in oncology, and also we have many ward, surgical ward with program of top program of neurosurgery, heart surgery, and also orthopedic surgery. I have the fortune to work, and 10 years ago, Gazzini administration called me from the General Hospital, adult General Hospital, San Martino Hospital, where I was the responsible of the brain injury unit to develop and to bring an inpatient rehabilitation clinic in the hospital. In these years, we develop and train a multi-professional team because before there were only physiotherapists. Now we have a multi-professional team with occupational therapists, speech therapists, psychologists, and natural physiotherapists. And we develop many inpatient clinical programs for severe disability. We have a brain injury program, a spine injury program, a pain clinic, some program for communication, augmentative communication. And we plan also surgical intervention for functional neurosurgery and functional orthopedic surgery. In parallel, we have some joint lab, important joint lab. One, this Ariel lab, augmented rehabilitation interactive ecology lab with Casa Paganini. And in this contest, we participate with this case study in EnTimeMent project. And we develop, we have a gate lab, a traditional gate lab, and we are, now I am enthusiastic after seeing this new system now here. And we studies the newborn movement. On this topic, we have a program with IT, the Italian Institute of Technology, to study the newborn spontaneous movement, to manage to predict early the movement deficit, to plan early intervention, early rehabilitation intervention in these cases. Then we have other programs with Casa Paganini. We develop some trainer for trunk control based on simple technology. And we have a new program with Luciano Fatiga here, and we hope in the next, in the next year to develop a non-invasive brain stimulation program, an experimental, a new lab in this field that we think that is a very, very interesting field for the future, from neurophysiology to the clinical application in rehabilitation field. We are very happy of the experiment we have the possibility to conduct in these days, and very happy to have the possibility to hear all this kind of experiment that in this context we are conducting on. Thank you.
Great. Great, thank you. So for the second round of questions, I would like we to go a bit further if we can. Great, and I ask all five panelists to try to judge, if we can, and evaluate the experiments that we've seen in the first part and the links and connections with your current projects. And then if you can envision how markerless motion capture technologies, and in particular the EnTimeMent research, can, in some cases, what kind of use case and applications can have in your own work. I know it's not easy, but I kindly ask, starting from Kate. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly well.
All right, great, thank you. So I've loved seeing the range of presentations that have come this afternoon and the variety of application that we have seen in just a short space of time. And I think, as kind of Professor Catherine Holloway said in her video, that the EnTimeMent project really is an example of the link between research and innovation. And when thinking about the successful innovation and implementation of human motion analysis GDI Hub's work, I really can see many positive benefits. The tools will be incredibly useful within research within GDI Hub and the wider field, which looks at novice pieces of assistive technology, as well as the development and advancement of assistive devices and how to get assistive technology to people who may most benefit from it. The data sets that are gathered from recording individual movement patterns will help in understanding objectively the range of human experience, including disability through the lifespan, as well as the acute and long-term conditions, as Nadia exampled. The information is going to be hugely useful in thinking about new developments of assistive technology that is directly responsive to individual need. So if we take prosthetics and orthotics as an example, an accurate human motion analysis will be able to accurately evaluate kind of critical joint movement, supporting in measurements, which are key when thinking about comfort of a device. And improved comfort means reduced likelihood of secondary complications from wounds, delayed healing, skin breakdown, and that's ultimately going to lead to increased synergy with the device, the user, and the environment, which will, most likely encourage a continued use. So we need data to prove an effect, and we know that within many of the areas that we work within disability inclusion and assistive technology, there isn't a lot of data. And data around motion analysis, the design of prosthetics and orthotics, can help us to think about what might be most beneficial for a person, for example, and reduce the use of any devices that are not offering support, which is ultimately time and waste saving. When thinking about not just the design of assistive technology, but the kind of uptake and positive use for it, I was thinking about the idea of gait and the depth of gait analysis we can get from something like this. And gaits, obviously, as we've spoken about, is one of these early predictors of falls within older people. And I can really see why objective measures like this and the ability to kind of prospective plan will be incredibly beneficial for implementing strategies to reduce falls risks. And that can even go as far as thinking about how we encourage people to positively think about assistive technology and walking aids. As I'm sure many people can probably relate to, the idea for some in taking up a walking stick or a Zimmer frame, or might be seen as giving in to the idea that we should be this, this human that doesn't have to need to use one of these devices. But actually, if you can build a kind of positive relationship with the person, and you can use the data and what this captures to see that actually perhaps when not using an assistive device or a walking stick or a frame, there are certain strains and challenges for your body. But when you use one of these devices, then maybe, there's offloading of joints, and actually you can have a better kind of synergy and relationship with the environment you're moving through. And so I think it's about that empowerment of people to be able to have a positive movement experience. And I can see why data like this can really be transformative for a person in thinking about their health. And I think that, another idea is that if we have a really good understanding about human movement, it can also encourage us to think about the relationship people have with the environment around them. So inclusive design is another key area of the Global Disability Innovation Hub work. And it's about designing a world where barriers that exclude disabled people are removed. And if we understand how people move and the relationship they have with the environment and how they navigate with it, like we saw within the dance video, we can look how to design an environment and assistive technology that can create a synchronized experience. One last thought is that we've spoken about sports and dance, and this, of course, as we always are advocating for, should include disabled people. Disabled people are dancers, they are athletes. And I think we need to think about how these kind of devices can be used to think about the inclusion and how we analyze movement of disabled people when they are competing and looking to improve their performance as a para-athlete. So I think there's a huge amount of application, but they're just some of my initial thoughts after engaging and watching some of these videos.
Well, thank you very much, Kate. As we are still having troubles with seeing the screen here at Casa Paganini, I would turn to my friends here, Daniel, and then I'll move later to Adriano so that we can see him in the face. What's your take on the experiments that you've seen?
How long do I have? Because I have a lot to say.
If you can keep it short.
I'll try to keep it short.
3 minutes, but.
So, first of all, I think of a very practical use of using Markerless. For example, I have placed markers on more people than I can even count. And in the last 2 years, the world has experienced a very different type of life. And even now, we try to keep our distance. It is impossible to keep your distance from a subject when you're applying markers. So Markerless removes that problem. And I've actually done some work in the Middle East as well, where asking a patient to even partially disrobe is somewhat of an issue for a variety of reasons. But as we've seen here, even wearing fairly normal garments, there's no problem in tracking human motion. So these are just very practical solutions to problems that arise with traditional motion capture. But beyond that, we can get past a lot of issues with, for example, in a children's hospital. I've worked with children with cerebral palsy. I've worked with patients that suffered from a stroke, or even worked closely with a lab developing algorithms for patients with Parkinson's. These are patients that to stand still for 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes while we prepare them for motion capture, it's challenging. They get very tired. So by the time we're asking them to perform whatever motion we are trying to analyze, it becomes problematic. Or as we even saw, the children walking across the stage, we usually don't even try to place markers on very small children, because as soon as you put a marker on them, it's like, ooh, that's nice. So we can get past these problems and get down to the real science. And these are hurdles that no longer exist. I think that is very promising and exciting. And even I can give one last example, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I was lucky enough to actually get a markerless system in my own house during lockdown. Of course, that limited my possible subjects to 4. So we took turns analyzing each other, but my wife actually suffered from long COVID. So it was very hard for her, especially at the beginning, to even just walk through our little gate lab that we put up in our attic. But with Markerless, just got up, walked, and then could go back to sitting down. And this it goes along with what we were talking about with children and people that have major neurological problems. This gives us a lot of options to be able to go beyond where traditional motion capture has taken us. So it's an exciting time to be in this field.
Well, thank you. Very interesting and original take from you, Paolo, and then Georgia.
Well, I am really interested in almost all the experiment that we have the possibility to see today, and I think that there is also many liaison between this experiment in the context of EnTimeMent, and I think that for example the work of Beatrice de Gelder on the emotion is really important, because also in our work in rehabilitation, the posture and the movement and the attitude toward which we put in front of the children, and also all the rehabilitation therapists have to take in consideration all these aspects. The experiments of Cristina Becchio is also of great interest. The intention of the movement and the possibility to predict the meaning of one gesture, I think that it is at the center of our behavior, or of our interactive behavior, and this is at the funding in the movement planning, in all the topic of movement planning. And also other experiment, Benoit experiment with the little group is very interesting, with this change of the leadership, and this possibility to train the capacity to improve the synchrony with some kind of exercise. We have many little group in rehabilitation setting, and so this is very, very important. And then also other experiments, I think that is real interesting.
Thank you, Paolo.
Okay. Well, I think that the experiments we have seen were truly impressive. And I also think that we can all imagine such different ways of exploitation of the EnTimeMent results. For my experience in electronic and in some healthcare application, and also due to my personal inclination, I immediately think of people with disabilities. Then I think of a different use of art exhibitions, for example, and but also new smart applications for everyday life, thanks to sensors that not only understand, but could also foresee our daily needs. And I know that CTI members have worked in very different realities and context, and I think it could be interesting spreading the EnTimeMent project results within the association in order to generate new ideas, brainchild, and to find new applications for all the exploitation of the EnTimeMent project results.
Great idea, this one. Adriano, you've re-emerged in the screen, so we are ready to hear from you.
Yeah, perfect. So, football stakeholders are struggling to find the real value on the potentially huge amount of the available tracking data today. There is a lack of advanced analytics, both live and archived, to review or optimize tactics and players' performances. So I was very impressed with how the aims of the experiments seen today are very close to the knowledge needs of the team sports. I wrote to myself some keywords of the different scenarios proposed, such as interactions, emotional body expression, planning the future, like prediction, affiliations, empathy, cohesion, and finally, leadership. So our scope is to study, unveil, and combine the relationships, interactions between the individual football elements, transporting them into unique value-added analytics to enhance football dynamics, understanding, and performance.
Well, that's an interesting take. So we've finished the second round of comments from the speakers. So if we agree, we could just open a third round, which is more kind of an interaction between the speakers, the 5 guests that we have today, the stakeholders as we've defined, and the partners of the project. So one of the things that we could do is, if you have any questions, Daniel, Paolo, Giorgia, Adriano, and Kate, questions to ask to the different partners of the project. Maybe you have shared with us some ideas, some insights, but maybe you have some doubts. Maybe you would like to ask the partners the direction of the work that they might take in this last 1 or 2 years of the project. 1 year, I guess. And so that's the idea. So it's going to be like, hopefully, more interactive. And so that's I don't know who wants to start. Maybe we can start from Kate in an order, or any questions, Kate, that you would like to ask to the EnTimeMent research partners?
Hello. I would just like to ask how people have incorporated and are thinking about disabled people within their project.
Sorry, Kate, I didn't catch what you said really well. I don't know if the others catched it. Can you repeat your questions?
Maybe I can answer and repeat the question at the same time.
Thanks, Nadia.
Yeah, okay. So Kate was asking how we have incorporated disability into our studies. And I think the EnTimeMent project is a basic research project. We are really rethinking how motion capture technology in a different way, but at the same time, we have within the EnTimeMent project, we have 2 use cases that are really focused on. The one I was presenting on chronic pain is really living with a disability, and I think and we have another one that is the study that Antonio present on children at the Gaslini Hospital with a motor disability. So from our perspective on chronic pain, so we, especially with respect to the this particular 2 weeks event, it is really thinking to the data, making sure that machine learning technology is trained also on data that come from a wider population, rather than typically a lot of this have been initially using for choreography. So a lot of this data come from this particular setting. And of course, his data sets are growing, but often, as Kate said at the beginning, a lot of group of people are missing from that. And so the event from this perspective, from our case, was one of the questions we had. Okay, if we just look right now, to what extent it will work for the type of movement that we are looking to track and to recognize. We also think in terms of we talk about emotional qualities and empathy, and it's also something that we are investigating in the context of chronic pain. What are the quality, emotional quality that are relevant here in terms of providing support and facilitate engagement in functional activity. But something that we are also exploring is from a social perspective, interaction. What does it mean? We have in chronic pain a lot of stigmas still, unfortunately, and social isolation. So how can technology help understand all these processes and, you know, hopefully one day make this aspect go away or address them, making people more aware of the factor that the hidden factor that may even contribute to that, not just conscious perspective of this social context. So there are many other factors that we are bringing in, and with the GDI Hub, I think is really studying a lot of different contexts that would be nice to explore. I discuss a lot of those with Kathy, but yeah, that's my 2 words answer, but maybe many other want to come into.
Well, it's interesting. I think what you say is in somewhat comparing to the football world and sports sphere. One thing is that comes to my mind is, for example, doing these kinds of experiments, if possible, with in a football setting or in a sports setting. I don't know how feasible it is, but maybe then I'm moving to Adriano. And the other thing is maybe trying to detect and understand from, for example, a young player when he starts playing and trying to understand from the movement he does or she does, the kind of future that she or he might have. I know this might be difficult to understand, but if we can detect from the movements a kind of character and the characteristics of this player, we could help the industry understand, and even the players understand the future. Adriano, what do you think? I mean, what are the questions that you have in mind if you have some to help our friends of EnTimeMent to move forward and maybe try and find some application for sports and football in particular?
Yeah, football is a complex sport with a lot of players, with complex and chaotic patterns. So the technology can help the players to grow, to improve their performance, and overall to help the coaches to understand in the real time the different dynamics related overall with their strategies. But I'd like to share with you the new technologies that Lega Serie A put in the stadium for this season. The new tracking data system that could tracking 18 skeleton points in the real time. So with these technologies, we can understand, for example, the gaze of the players, the movement of the head, to understand the vision and the perceptions for each players. So we can understand better the cognitive skills of the player. And then we can also use the VR to rebuilding the match and see the match from the different point of view. I'd like to understand for you, what do you think about the possibilities that technology give us today to understand the processor making of the players and of the human being in general? If you think that with this kind of instruments we can go inside the brain to understand the connection between the physical context and the decision making of the human brain.
Very interesting question. I don't know if there's any one of the partners that is willing to answer. Please.
Hi, I'm Luciano Fadiga from the Italian Institute of Technology, one of the partners of this consortium. And I think the point that has raised Adriano Bacconi is very important for us. I'm a neurophysiologist, so neuroscience. We deal with the brain, and your question was about the brain.
Yeah.
The point, what you ask is also our goal, although from a more general point of view, it means how the movement can help us in understanding which is the goal of the moving person. And the goal understanding is the dream of neurophysiologists, and also in your case, obviously, people working in the environment like the sport or the soccer one. There are
I lost the audio.
You're muted for some reason.
We are muted.
Okay, now it's working. It's working.
Works. Okay. Sorry. I just say again that the last few words. I mean that understanding the goal of an acting person is also for us is a dream, and is something real that we are trying to understand, and we are going in this direction since many years. But there are other two consequences, positive consequences of this kind of markerless acquisition technique. The first one is that we can use kinematic tracking techniques also with children, and particularly with children who do not support markers on the body. I'm thinking now, for example, to autistic children. And we can achieve a lot of information from the study of the motor behavior of autistic children. I think Paolo agrees on this. And the other important consequence, again, more in the clinical domain, is that we can imagine one day some sort of automatic diagnosis done by this system with the help of artificial intelligence based on the analysis of the global movement. At the Gaslini Hospital, for example, they do analysis of the spontaneous movement of newborns, but this analysis is done by expert people that have to look at the videos of these babies. I imagine that one day probably it will be possible to extract automatically the pathological features from videos. So it's an open field of research, and I think there could be many interaction with what you do, for example, Adriano, and what we can provide you in the future from our perspective.
Yeah, we can.
That's great.
We can discuss together in the future, because I think it's very important to link the science and the findings with our projects.
Well, I think this is great. I think this is one of the aim of this event, was to just start, some links and collaboration between stakeholders and partners. But Antonio, I guess you'd like to add something.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Adriano, for it's very interesting question you raised. I just say we did a few years ago an attempt using very rough video from a football race, Inter Barcelona of the Triplete. Maybe you know. And but we had from those video, very rough video, and low amount of it, because I was interested in applying our techniques to analysis of social signals, in particular the entrainment among the football players, for example, in an attack, and who is the leader, if there is a clear leadership that causes, and we measure our measures of entrainment and leadership in correlation with the success of the action, that is go to a goal, or to an action that is close to a goal, to a success. And we found even with this very rough data, and doing just center of mass of the players and the velocity, we got promising results from our techniques based from change point detection and event synchronization and measuring entrainment and leadership from our techniques that we have developed at our center. So I was very happy to hear that a large amount of data might be available to do, let's say, a stronger scientific validation and to understand if they are really expressive in terms of finding correlation of our measure of entrainment and leadership with something that can be useful, for example, for trainers, for coaches, and for or for training of young young football players, or for training. That is something, maybe I'm a naive and I'm not expert, of course, in that, but our experience that we gained from working with famous choreographers, a group of dancers, and music ensembles that we applied. So we passed from the theater La Scala in Milan or Salzburg Festival and Biennale in Venice, where we did our experiences. We did a very naive attempt to move toward in this direction. So maybe we can keep in touch to do some check. But I'm really impressed from your results about the tracking and the results that you have shown. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Georgia, Daniel, any new thoughts, questions that you might have?
Okay, I would underline another aspect that is on methodology, because we know that design thinking methodology is important to solve problems in a creative way, to find human-centered products or services. But we also know that a data-driven approach enables more effective decisions to be made. And recently I started study a new approach that combines the two methodology, the two visions, and path the way to a data thinking approach. And it sounds very near to the methodology of the EnTimeMent project. So I want to ask to the team if, and because I think that another ambitious goal would be to extract this kind of methodology and approach, this data thinking process, because it could be more important than we think in spreading innovation everywhere. And the second question is how they think that CTI members with multidisciplinarity and different realities could support the dissemination, the exploitations of the EnTimeMent results in order to maximize the benefit of a project.
Okay, good questions. Is there anyone from the partners who would like to answer? I don't know, maybe Nadia or Martin.
I understood the second question, but I missed the first one. Could you repeat the first question? Sorry for this, but.
Yes, if you can extract also the methodology, the approach, because I can figure out a data thinking approach who mix that mix the design thinking methodology with a data-driven approach. So I think that this could be another ambitious goal of your project.
Yeah, so maybe I can give it a try to this question, and I leave to the other for the exploitation that is also critical for our project and to really have an impact on society. But if I understand correctly your question, I fully agree with you, because or at least I'm a kind of a double hat. On one side, I have a human-computer interaction background, and then I'm using machine learning models to model behavior in relation to emotion and other cognitive state. So for me, it becomes really important not just to say, okay, I have the data and now just learn something and using, but really understand what we can learn from those models and how we can use it. For me, beyond the recognition of the behavior from the patient, for example, it's very important to think, okay, how we can inform the design of new intervention. So that learning is critical, that and a different level from direct understanding what the system is learning, but also understanding more high level that what you call methodology. So and that's why for me it's interesting. I've been using different type of motion capture using the project and before. At the moment, I'm collecting data in people's home with a much cheaper system. And I like the idea of bringing that motion capture markerless system in the home. That would be great. Patient would be so happy. But I think that this system will allow us to study movement in so much more natural setting. And with, say, just talking of people close, multiple people at the same time, no lost time of calibration in a variety of environment. That means learning about people. Often we study people in the lab or even in the clinic. That's very important analysis, but it's just a window on people problem. And so I think through all this motion capture technology that is emerging through the study, that hopefully we are contributing within EnTimeMent from a machine learning perspective, neuroscience perspective, emotion, and HCI. There is that learning of real life movement from sports to more real life everyday situation and disabled. So that learning is critical, and we are trying to extract it by working interdisciplinarily, not just by building a system. And any collaboration that anybody is, even just cases that you or the group is interested, I'm really happy to have a discussion and think how we can further improve our contribution to society.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Daniel wants to add something.
I would like to continue the discussion that I think Adriano started. Obviously, I come much more from the technology side of this, but real world research is essential to really understanding the real motion that's happening. We've known for years that when analyzing, for example, gait in a lab, there are lab biases. So the length of the lab, the width of the lab, are there windows? Is there a drawing of a tree on the end? These affect the behavior. So of course, analyzing the motion during an actual game in football, that is going to give us a lot of information. And Federico, you mentioned the idea of being able to predict if a young player is promising as a future player or not. This is something that, of course, as Americans, we have gotten obsessed with in especially baseball. And I'm not sure you can call it a science, but people say we've made a science of statistics of baseball. It's maybe more entertainment, but there's a lot of information that can be gathered there. Of course, baseball is a very short sport. Essentially, each play is maybe a few seconds long. Soccer or football is a much longer. You have 90 minutes plus some, and at any moment in there could be a valuable moment, as Antonio was talking about, seeing the development of a game as it happens, or we can talk about volleyball, how any of this impacts it. So my question, I guess I'm leading up to that, is how have the partners considered moving outside the lab. I mean, this is an incredible setup, and I mean, Casa Paganini, I've never been to a more beautiful lab, but what about people walking in Piazza de Ferrari? How is a leader affecting those that are walking with him? How interesting is that, and the direction that we can take that? So real world research is becoming more accessible with markerless technology. So I'm interested in hearing feedback on that.
Well, very good questions, Daniel. I don't know if there's anyone else like Martin Bjorkam. I see he's connected.
Yeah.
So that you can, yes. And
I agree that something you want to see is the possibility to leave the lab settings to more natural settings, and I think that data-driven learning is something that would help a lot. Process, and then of course markerless. It becomes very important because you can't expect people all the time to wear markers. And I think additional applications, there are systems that are more or less online learning. They're constantly learning. You don't have a phase of data collection and another phase of analysis and results, but you are constantly learning something. And while you're doing that, you can hopefully create models that are much more individualized compared to those that you had before. Because you're able to capture much more data from the same individual, but also benefit from more general movement patterns of people in general. But you can then tell the difference between a particular individual and people in general. But yeah, things takes time, of course. But I think that's we have that in the back of our head, and especially us at KTH, where our focus is on machine learning and the challenges of machine learning and also promises of machine learning. How could we exploit data from different sources to, when the amount of data in a particular domain is very limited, can we exploit data from other sources to assist training in a particular domain, for example, but also combined supervised learning and unsupervised learning to keep collecting data, because even though the human body is very high dimensional, and which creates problems for machine learning, especially if you're looking at movement qualities that are long term, the number of data points you have is very few, even if you spend hours and hours collecting data. But if you combine like data from many different areas, not just from the target domain, you can hopefully come to something that would become much more useful in a more natural setting.
If I can talk for the GDI Hub, because I don't know if Kate knows. So because of our work, as I said, we have now given sensors to patients, so they are in their home. But with the GDI app, we are also leaving the home and starting to study movement. I don't know, transition and so, when people have to move from one surface to back to their wheelchair and so on, and going out in the streets in their own car and in their own house or other place, and really see how people do it there, and with the motion capture type we had. So again, this markerless type of motion capture are going to open a lot of opportunity already with respect to the few data set that are emerging in real life. I think that's really important that that we move out and we study movement in those settings where, you know, we had some of our patients going out in the street without we asking, bringing our technology. They know, for example, that their movement is very different from the hospital to their home, and even when they go from their home outside, because outside there is the social pressure, they have to move at a different speed for the fear, you know, to interfere with others, for fear don't make it across the street. So there is so many interesting factors in different contexts that affect our our movement. And as Martin say, gathering all this data, learning from all this context become also a very interesting question and challenge, and for an opportunity for the machine learning, and really pushing the boundary on what we can do with machine learning and modeling movement.
Thank you, Nadia. Paolo.
One comment and then one practical question. I think that this problem to bring the study out of the lab is very important, and also in the theory context of rehabilitation, we make a distinction between capacity, that is the goal that we can reach in the treatment context, and performance, that we consider the ability in the natural environment of the patient. So also conceptual, this is very important. And also, I think that the future is really to bring this out of the lab. In our hospital, we have created now a flat, an apartment in the hospital to train family before that they go out of the hospital. And in this environment, we hope to can study a more natural situation, but it's not a real life. This is the comment. The question for Daniel is a practical question. When we have to make some study of movement, we have some many problems with disabled, when the disabled have some assistive device, cane, rollator, and you think that this problem it is possible to resolve with the future system and this problem, because when we have device, when we have also in the interaction objects, the actual system have always important problem.
So just to be clear, your question is relating to assistive devices and the effect they have on kinetic data, mostly because of force plates. Am I understanding correctly? As
the difficulty to register data and to have a affordable result when we have people that
sure.
move with assistive device, so later cane, that we have problem with the flex, with the occlusion.
Okay.
And this all problem. And also in interacting with object, for example, in this example of our experiment book, in the interactive storytelling and other kind of.
Excellent question. Thank you. So Markerless technology obviously is a great solution for tracking a person, and some of the problems of occlusion of markers are solved partially by Markerless technology. Of course, we do have occlusions also with Markerless technology, and part of this experiment has been very interesting, and it's shown some of the current limitations. For example, we heard Martin earlier speaking about the Indian singer sitting here on the stage. We did not show the Markerless reconstruction of that, you may have noticed. Chose not to because it wasn't a good representation of where the technology is actually at. As while the singer was sitting on the floor, we had trouble reconstructing the legs. So this is a current limitation. It doesn't mean it will always be there. It's software that is constantly improving. But one of the things we can do is we can also combine Markerless with motion capture. So we can still collect data with markers and Markerless. So for example, we could place markers on assistive devices, so we can still track them in space accurately, even though the Markerless system might not be able to recognize a cane or a walker. But that combined with the normal walking that a person would do with an assistive device, we could get a full picture of what's actually happening. Of course, occlusions could cause problems, and I would say the best way to know is we need to try. I'm always ready to turn the cameras on and see what happens, because sometimes we just don't know until we try.
Well, thanks, Daniel, and good question, Paolo. I don't know, Antonio, I think we are running out of time. I mean, we're well beyond the time that we were supposed to finish. Would you like to make some final comments or remarks, or if there's any other questions? But I'm just aware of the time, so especially for our friends that are connected from Zoom.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to, I've been listening to these discussions, and I think we got a lot of very interesting ideas. And yeah, also very interesting to see, for example, with the sports applications, what is all already possible there. It's really impressive applications going on. And I think also it's good to realize there's different types of markerless processing here. So we have, from the one camera perspective, you can already get a lot of information, and this is probably going to be developed much more. And this will allow a lot of these out of the lab studies. The system we have been experimenting with is basically it's very specialized for also biomechanics, very precise measurements. And I think maybe a combination of different types of systems can also give a very interesting. So for example, the exact systems can be used for evaluation, and then you have the other systems which can be used for a wider kind of application. So I think it's good in mind that there's quite a wide stretch of what markerless can be, and a lot of things to explore there, I think. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Erwin. Good comments, and this is, I think it's good to know. Antonio.
Okay, so I think that we can close this showcase of the EnTimeMent project and in this 2-week campaign on motion capture. I wish to thank the roundtable participants, the stakeholders, so Adriano and Georgia and Paolo and Daniel. So has been your comments are very, very valuable, and thank you, Federico, for the guidance in this and wise suggestions and comments. So I appreciate a lot the comment. I think I would like to continue this discussion, maybe also with the further talks and further contact with you all. And I would like to conclude by thanking all the partners and also all my colleagues that we were 11 here at Casa Paganini working for these 2 weeks to set up and support all the experiments. And so all my colleagues that are mentioned in the flyer. So they were invaluable, as well as the flexibility of and the patience of all partners and participants. So really, thank you so much to everyone, and a special thanks to Qualis for supporting these 2 weeks very carefully for the whole period. And I hope we'll have follow-up from this discussion and continue. And in any case, we'll have deliverables on December, in which we have to write down some basic aspect in order to guide the project in the last year. So the next year will be the last year of this 4-year project. And I think that we have some lessons and important notes to take into account in order to guide the research and also to move more intensively in this last year toward applications. So thank you so much, and hope to meet you soon in the near future. And thanks again.
Thank you, Antonio.
Goodbye. Good evening.
Thank you, Antonio.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Grazie.